Okay, I think we're going to get started. I'd like to welcome you to the high-speed internet informational presentation. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Angela Otis, Chair of the Select Board. And with us today are the other members of the Select Board, Wayne Glazer and Diane Bushy, along with our Finance Committee members, Chris Bissell and Don Scaprati, our Town Clerk Gina, and each person will play a role in today's presentation. To begin, a few housekeeping items. Please turn off your cell phones. I often forget to do that. So we would appreciate your attention to that. There are two restrooms in the auditorium, as you all might remember, to the right and to the left behind the stage here. And of course the exit doors are to my left in the back of the auditorium hall and in the front. So what I'd like to do is share with you right now the purpose of our time together and what you can expect to learn before leaving today. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the format of the meeting and how it's going to be conducted. Let me begin with what the meeting is not. It is not a decision-making meeting. It is an informational presentation which allows for a summary of potential options to complete this high-speed internet network and to provide a forum for you as residents with questions. We found it critically important to be able to have a dialogue with the town residents and taxpayers about the option and to bring you up to a current status of our internet work. So, even if you have an opinion already on the high-speed network and how it should work and who should provide it and who should own it, we ask that you be respectful today to the presenters, that you listen and consider the pros and cons of what you're about to hear. I'm not going to go through a very deep dive on the background of this project. I think we're all painfully familiar with it. But I will remind you that in 2008, Governor Deval Patrick signed right on the town office steps here a bill that created the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, and one that said we wanted to have broadband internet within 3 years. That was in 2008. To his credit, and the legislature's credit, in 2014, $50 million was set aside for those underserved and unserved towns. I think it came to about 220,000 households without, adequate broadband internet at that time. And then, of course, in June 2015, at our record-breaking town meeting, residents voted unanimously to authorize this $1.4 million for a regional solution to own, build, and operate a fiber network. So what have we been doing since June 2015? Well, the state paused to determine if a single solution that is a one-size-fits-all would work for these unserved or underserved towns. And they wanted to validate that towns understood the financial implications of the borrowing that they would need. None of us anticipated the twists and turns, but in some ways it has provided a broader view of what might work. We're now in the restart process, and a number of proposals and modifications have been developed, and even more are underway. We don't know yet what all the choices will be. However, we want you to become familiar with the concepts of the town-owned network and a private partner-owned network. Ultimately, the Select Board has the legal responsibility to make the decision for the town. But today, and in the weeks to come, we want to hear from residents on your preference. And we will speak a bit about how your voice can be heard in this process. First, I'd like to talk about how the presentation will be conducted. To allow allotted time for each presenter, we must adhere to a format where all questions will be asked and addressed after everyone has made their presentation. There's a note column on this comparison chart which each of you should have at your seat, allowing you to jot your questions down throughout the presentations so you're prepared with thoughts, and at the end, when we open up sessions to a question period. But should you prefer to write your question and have it read aloud by another, there's a yellow comment card right there on the side table. And we've got folks, Diane Bushy and Gina Papineau. Where's Diane? There's Diane in the back, and Gina. Will be available to pick up the comment card and bring them to the facilitator to read your question aloud. For all questions, whether you stand and ask them or whether you write them on your yellow comment card, we ask you to identify if you are not a Goshen resident or taxpayer, and if not, your affiliation. To bring people up to speed, no pun intended, Wayne will begin today's presentation walking us through the comparison chart of a town-owned network and of a private-owned network, covering type of technology and services offered, timeline from start to finish, coverage options and their impact to the town, taxpayers, and subscribers. From there, he'll introduce the presenters. Following the presentations, there'll be a question period. And lastly, as we are interested in gathering insight into your preference for high-speed internet, a green color preference card is provided on the tables closest to the stage. And on your way out, you may drop them off in any boxes nearby. Right now, I'd like to turn this presentation time over to our facilitator, Wayne Glaser.
Hello. Welcome to the 13th Annual Conference on how to bring the fast lane of the data highway to the hill towns. Whoops, that's my speech in 2 years. My name is Wayne Glaser. I'm on your select board and the person shepherding this project for the town, probably because I've got close to 40 years in the network and information technology fields, working at Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, as well as a large university, both small and medium manufacturers, and running a consulting business of my own for a while. On a more serious note, we are actually on the cusp of beginning this process and getting it done. So I'll briefly go over this chart, which everybody has the option to look at if they picked it up. It's the first one over there. Angela's already talked about the order that we'll do the presenting in, so we'll begin. The first thing we're looking at is the technology section of this comparison chart. And I'm just going to go over these row by row so you understand a little bit at a very high level. Where you see, such as in this first cell, additional explanation by provider, that means we've asked the people who are giving information today to add information beyond the high-level overview that I'm dealing with. So in the first one, under the WiredWest column, which is proposed to be built by Westfield Gas Electric, we're going to build a fiber-to-the-home network via gigabit passive optical network, that's GPON, and that means fiber to the home via splitters in areas of the town, okay? On the Comcast side, we're talking about a hybrid fiber coax network, fiber from Northampton, their lines from Northampton up to Goshen, and then to various nodes, then coax cable from those nodes to the homes, okay? On the second row, pardon me, the WiredWest option proposes 100% coverage on existing utility poles passing homes. Doesn't mean that we're going to run a wire to everybody's home. It means that there will be fiber on the poles past everybody's home. Okay. Coverage and costs will be decided by the town during the design and build phase. Okay. On the Comcast side, we're talking a minimum of 96% coverage on existing utility poles. Coverage above 96% will be evaluated by Comcast based on the costs involved to connect in each location. So they may end up providing 97, 98, 99% coverage, even 100% coverage, but they won't know that till they actually do the design work and figure out what's cost effective. Additional coverage, if there's something that they don't pick up, may be picked up by either Comcast for a fee for that difficult connection, or the town or the subscriber. Those things will have to be decided at a later point. On redundancy, WiredWest has, their proposal is a multi-town network with ring technology, so that if there's a sever anywhere in that plant, there's a way to get back to the people who are covered via another method. On the Comcast side, it's a fiber line up from Northampton to nodes in Goshen, and they will have to explain whether or not there's what their redundancy is. On internet privacy, WiredWest says they will have no data collection. This is by the ISP. Obviously, it will depend on the contract with the ISP between them and WiredWest. We have no reason to believe that that they won't be able to achieve this. On the Comcast side, there will probably be data and information collection and some kind of recouping of costs based on that. So they're, as an ISP, they will not provide that kind of protection against collection of information. But the important thing to remember on either of those, and somebody has raised this before in other meetings, they talked about the regulation from the FCC that was rolled back by the Trump administration. We have to remember that that regulation never actually went into effect, number one. So technically you haven't lost anything, but more importantly, the horse is out of the barn on this topic in a much bigger way. If you're using any search engine, whether it's Google, Yahoo, they're doing data collection. If you're using a cell phone, whether it's an iOS, Apple phone, or an Android phone by Google, they're doing cell collection. If you're using apps on any of your phones, they're doing data collection as well. And they've been doing that for a long time. So, and they've been doing it unregulated. So it's just something to be aware of. Types of service offered. On the WiredWest plan, there will be high-speed internet, there will be telephone, that's VoIP, voice over internet. There will be over-the-top television. That doesn't mean a cable package, that means you can contract with any number of providers out there like Hulu, Netflix, Amazon. You get to pick and choose whichever provider you want and whichever amount you want to pay. On the Comcast side, you'll have the same three things, and they also offer cable television packages if you don't want to do all that individual choosing. Estimated time to completion. See, this is why I think I'm not going to be giving that speech in 2 years about the 13th annual Hilltown Conference on high-speed internet. We expect with either of these proposals that the best case scenario to have the network built and lit is by the end of 2018. That's going to be real progress, and it will of course depend on what people find during the design and build out phase of the network. Because you could have a situation where, and we've had one town in Western Mass already that's had this situation, you find out whether or not all the utility poles, that's one of the processes you go through, whether or not they're ready and suitable for building out the network. And we had one town, believe it was Leiden, I can't remember whether it was 36 or 40% of their poles had to be replaced. Now Goshen's got 1,324 poles. If you multiply 40% of those poles, if we had that many bad poles, and we're a National Grid customer, they charge $4,500 a pole to replace a pole. So that's a whole lot of money if we have a high pole replacement cost. So that's an example, though, of the types of costs that we won't know until you choose which way you're going to go and somebody does the actual design and build out process. Length of service to connect from the utility pole to your home. In either case, it's the first 300 feet covered by the provider. Greater than that is to be paid by the homeowner. Net neutrality. Both companies support net neutrality. Comcast has a public policy supporting it, and WiredWest has a policy supporting it as well. And what is that? It explains it right there. The ISP makes access to all content application regardless of the source without favoring or blocking products or websites. Just a minute. Thank you. Okay. We'll move to the next section, which are costs to the town. So the first section is debt to the town, okay? On the WiredWest proposal, as we all know, there was a bond voted, or a debt service vote to approve $1.4 million in borrowing to be used for this project. You can see the figures there, $770,000 of grant funds from the state, subtracted from the estimated cost of $2.17 million for the total project, equals the $1.4 million to be borrowed. Then the interest at 3% over 20 years would be $441,000. And you can see there's a little illustration down below based on the current assessed property values in Goshen. The first single value residence, the $218,669, that's the odd number as opposed to the even number. That's the actual average assessed value of a home in Goshen. Okay, so you can see what the approximate tax increase would be per year. Now, don't think that when you see that $144, that's not an extra. It doesn't accumulate every year. It's one time all the way through the 20 years. So it's $144 each year, not $144 the first year, $288 the next year, $300 and whatever it is the year after that. It's $144. And if you want to pull out a second sheet that I left people, which gives you a property tax impact comparison.
Part of the Goshen statistics sheet here.
We tried to make a simple illustration, which says if the borrowing is $1.4 million at 3% or at 5% or at 7%, we all know interest rates are going up. The 3% will probably turn out a little bit low, but we don't know for sure. 5% may be more realistic, and it's also possible that part of that debt is paid early on at 3%, and in 5 or 10 years, it has to go up to a different percentage. So this sheet shows you the tax implications on an annual, a quarterly tax bill, and a daily tax bill. So let's take the 5%, that's the middle one. This one right here. If you take that and you look at the assessed value of your property or your house column way over on the left and follow it over, you can see that your annual tax impact on the average Goshen home at 5% would be $171 per year instead of $144. At the 7%, it would be $201 instead of $144. And I've also given you what the quarterly tax impact would be for each of those, because most of us pay our tax bills quarterly. And for those of you who like to see what it's going to cost in your daily lives, you know, is it going to be worth a cup of coffee? Is it going to be worth a hamburger? Is it going to be worth your deluxe meal at a fancy restaurant? You can see the daily impact can vary anywhere from 5 cents on the very low end up to $1.89 on the high end. Remember, those are over 20 years. It's not a one-time payment. Let's get back to the spreadsheet. On the Comcast side, they're going to build and own the network and operate it. So there is no borrowing to the town of Goshen in that scenario. They would receive the $770,000 money from the state that WiredWest would get in the same scenario. That's based on the construction, design, build, and professional services fees. Okay, so they would get that, plus they would get an additional amount of incentive from the state beyond that amount because the state has been very active in negotiating with some private carriers to give big companies an incentive to come in and do this so the town won't be burdened with tax issues. And Bill Ennen is here from the state, and he will be our last speaker, so he'll probably talk a little bit more about that. Okay. Next is pole attachment rental fees. $18,000 for the first year has to be paid by the town. Subsequent years are built into the WiredWest proposal. Then you get to network electronics. These are electronics basically that are in a hut that's in the town, and that will cost the town $7,000 per year. And that's based on a 7-year depreciation. If the electronics last longer than that, it would be less. If the electronics last less than that, it might be more, because you might have to pay a little bit more upfront to replace things. Who pays for the technology upgrades when they are necessary? In the WiredWest proposal, it's Goshen. And see the 2 sections above, that explains it. In the Comcast proposal, Comcast pays for those things. Let's go down to legal fees. In the WiredWest proposal, there's $0 for contract review, or very, very little, because we'd be piggybacking on existing legal review by town council of similar contracts with other WiredWest towns. There may be some fees when recurring service agreements are renewed. Generally, WiredWest is looking at 5-year service agreement renewals. On the Comcast side, we anticipate the town will probably have about $10,000 for initial franchise and contract review, recurring when the franchise agreements are renewed, generally every 5 or 10 years. Potential revenues to the town. Some monies may be returned to the town under the WiredWest plan based on the take rate. The take rate is what percentage of households in the town actually sign up and actually get the service. So if 50% of the households sign up for the service, there would be some money returned to the town. If the take rate is greater than 70%, that would provide enough money for the town to and the town would make this decision, not WiredWest, to either offset town debt for the project or contribute to other town capital projects. The town could use that money in that scenario however they wanted. Okay. On the Comcast side, there would be probably a small revenue stream. I don't have an estimate, from cable TV licensing fees negotiated when the contract with Comcast comes up. Okay, now we're on cost to subscribers, internet pricing. This is the price of the plans that the two entities have. WiredWest's proposal is to have a symmetrical based network, which means the same speed for uploads and downloads. So 20. Go on again. I hope. Okay, same speed up for uploads and downloads. They have a basic package, which is 25 megs up and down for $59 per month, and a 1 gig package up and down for $75 a month. And I'm sure they will explain a little bit about how that's going to work when they have the opportunity later on. On the Comcast side, their speeds up and down are listed. They're asymmetrical. That means the speed down is much greater than the speed up. And that's typically because most people download a lot more than they upload, but not everybody does. Okay, and the prices there are listed, and you'll see there's a bundled / standalone price. And the bundled price is cheaper because that means that's the amount that you pay if you get your internet service plus some other package like a cable TV package. But that's the internet service price, not the whole bundled price, just to be clear. VoIP for telephone is offered by both. $19 per month from WiredWest includes voicemail and a battery backup that will last us several hours. And VoIP is offered by Comcast as well, but I didn't have the pricing at the time I put this together, so I'm sure that question will come up and they'll be able to answer that. Access to television. Subscription television was removed from the original WiredWest proposal because it would make the project too expensive. There's a lot involved because you have to have head-end equipment which downloads things to satellite to the network, and you have to pay for the intellectual context when you have not cable TV, but TV that way. So over-the-top TV will be available via both providers, and that utilizes your actual internet connection itself. And this goes back to something I was talking about before. Over-the-top TV means you can choose which provider you want. Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, Sling, there's quite a few of them, and you can get that over your internet connection. Obviously, Comcast also offers cable TV, but you don't necessarily have to take that. You can get over-the-top TV if you prefer that. Activation or installation fees, $99 one time for initial activation by WiredWest, $75 installation fee by Comcast if the subscriber wants Comcast to set up the connections to the box in their home. Many people can do that. Other people will find that a bit of a trial. So it depends on you or your children's ability to deal with it. Okay, seasonal pricing, I'm going to ask both providers to explain their seasonal pricing. Potential impacts to the town on the WiredWest plan because of the borrowing. We list all the current items that are requested on the capital plan and their costs there. Because the $1.4 million is a debt override, it could impact some of the capital plan items. Keep in mind the capital plan items are things that people have requested, so the dollar amounts you see there haven't been thoroughly vetted in terms of, oh yes, we're going to do this. This is just part of the long-term planning process. But if you get into a situation, there are some very large items for some departments that are very expensive. We may say, well, that'll have to wait a few more years, or we may have to do a debt override in order to to get the borrowing and pay for that. So you may have to come to a town meeting and say, oh yeah, we're going to do a debt exclusion because we want something big, maybe a building or whatever. I'm just throwing the idea out there. I'm not saying that's going to happen. On the Comcast side, there's no borrowing because Comcast is going to own, operate, and build a network. There's no borrowing to the town. Last but not least is the contractual agreements. The proposed WiredWest service agreement is for 5 years. After the initial term, the town can either renew the contract or switch to another vendor. It's important to note in this proposal, if the town did decide to switch to somebody other than WiredWest, the town would still own the network itself, and we would be asking somebody else to come in and operate it. So we wouldn't lose the network. On the Comcast side, it's a franchise agreement with the town. The agreement timeframes are usually 5 or 10 years. The agreement is non-exclusive. That means, for instance, we use the middle mile in the town hall for the town offices through Crocker. It would not prohibit us from continuing to do that if we wanted, or if we wanted to use that for some other service provider to connect to. After each term on the Comcast side, the town can either renew the contract or not. If the town chooses not to renew the agreement, Comcast would presumably pull out their network, and we would have to search for not only another network operator, but also have to build a network from scratch. So those are the basic things. I want to go for a minute just to the secondary sheets that I provided. You saw the property tax impact comparison sheet. How am I doing on time, Gina and Diane?
10 minutes over.
I'm 10 minutes over. Okay, well, why didn't you say something? I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Okay, so on the first page, the debt service payment and interest comparison, again, this only would apply to the town-owned proposal, not the Comcast proposal. You can see we've made a simple illustration here based on 20 years at different percentage rates, which tells you whether or not you have a level debt payment. Level debt payment is typically like your mortgage, where you pay the same amount every year, or in your case every month, in our case every year. You pay the same amount every year, and the amount of your interest would go down over the course of the time, which is why you see at the bottom the total interest on a level debt payment scheme is higher, because you're paying less on the principal early and more on the principal later. In the level principal payment scheme, next to it, you see that you pay more early on, because say perhaps you're paying $75,000 every year of principal. That doesn't change. The interest rate is more because you owe more at the beginning, but the payments go down over time. So you can see the town tends to, on most of their items, do the level principal, because it ultimately ends up costing less. Okay, and you can see the prices for 5% and 7% as well. On that same sheet, you also have something called Goshen statistics. A lot of times questions come up just to go over them. They're pretty self-explanatory. These are the latest census figures from Goshen. Total households, 571. Full-time year-round households are 410. Seasonal households are 161. Number of households with people over 60, that's 36%. That's more than 1/3 of the town. Number of households with children, that's 79. That's 13.84, or 14% of the town. Total current census population is 972. Number of residents over 60 is 314, 32.3% of the town. School-aged children, 5 to 18, 124, roughly 13% of this town. And questions often come up about school things at these meetings, so I just threw a little information out there so you could have it. New Hingham School, which has a total staff of 42, total students 141, total staff and students 183. Number of students from Goshen 56, which is 39.72%. Hampshire Regional, total staff 148, total students 758, total staff and students 906. Number of Goshen students 4.62. Keep in mind that the Hampshire counts do not include all the students that go to other schools that Hampshire is in some sense responsible for, like Smith Voc. So those students aren't included in there. So the population of high school age students would be a little bit higher, but not a lot. 10. 10 says the chair of the finance committee. Okay. The projected levy limit for 2018 is $2.256 million. The total education spending request for 2018 is $1.43 million. Just gives you an example to compare, which is roughly 63.5% of the monies that the town has to raise to pay their bills. And I think that's it for me. Thanks for your patience. Remember, we want everyone to be civil and respectful in their approach to questions and comments when we get there. That will be after everybody presents. Please be patient. Don't forget, you can use comment cards if you want. And now, I'll turn the meeting over to our first presenters, who are from Comcast. We have Dan Glanville, Eileen Leahy, and Jim Bitsis, and they will give a short presentation, hopefully shorter than mine.
We have one presentation, so all three of us will not be speaking. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Glanville. I'm the Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Comcast, and I thank you very much for welcoming us here this morning. We originally responded to a request to find a solution for a concern for and underserved communities, and we're happy to be here today to be part of that discussion as you make an important decision. I'm also happy to be joined by some of my colleagues to my left. Driving the computer, because I may be incapable, is Mr. Jim Bitsis. Jim has been with Comcast for 34 years in our engineering and construction department. And to my right is Eileen Leahy. She is in my department of Government and Regulatory Affairs, and she is beginning her third year with Comcast. I've been with Comcast for 19 years. All three of us live in Western Massachusetts. Eileen and I are lifelong residents of Holyoke, Massachusetts, and Jim is a lifelong resident of Westfield, Massachusetts. I spent many days in my youth passing this town hall on my way to the Ashfield Lake and the Ashfield Country Club, so it's very familiar, and it's nice to be here this morning on a spring morning. We currently serve 34 communities in Western Massachusetts. 35 communities in Western Massachusetts. And recently, we did enter into an agreement with Massachusetts Broadband for the expansion in underserved communities, which are 9 communities across Western Massachusetts. We are making tremendous progress for the advancement of our network in those communities, and hopefully look forward to doing the same in some other communities. The Western New England Comcast is broken into divisions and regions. Our central corporate offices are out of Philadelphia. We have 3 divisions across the country. We are in the Northeast Division. In the Northeast Division, I am part of a team in the Western New England region, which is made up of Vermont, the 35 communities in Western Massachusetts, and Connecticut. In that region today, we span some 7,000 miles of fiber and 24,000 miles of coaxial cable to build our HFC network across our region. We can go to the next page. Just a brief quote, as I think some of the issues we are trying to solve together, that you are trying to solve, and that we are trying to help solve. There you go. That's great. So a little bit about us and the Comcast network, and really 4 main pieces to it. It provides the opportunity for innovation and growth, access via broadband and Wi-Fi, future-proof investments, and meet economic and development goals. When I speak of future-proof investments, I think it has some bearing to speak to really the 19 years that I have been with Comcast. When I first entered our industry, we were the first launcher of high-speed internet across what was traditionally known as a cable HFC network. At that time, a cable modem delivered services of 1.5 megabits downloading and 0.5 megabits upstream. Since that time, through investment in our network, investment in head-end technology and hub technology, and investment in end-user electronics, we have increased the speed on our network some 18 times and continue to invest millions and billions of dollars in our network to meet and exceed customers' demand across the country. The principal point I'm trying to make is that the services that we offer to our customers in Philadelphia, in Boston, and in San Francisco are available today in Western Massachusetts, in the town of Gill, and all of the communities that we serve across Western New England and across the country. I think we can go to the next one. So, pillars of civic engagement. Very large in believing in community investment, economic development, product innovation, and the customer experience. 4 pillars that we adhere to across the country in our company, and we'll be happy to go into specific detail or any questions you may have pertaining to them during the Q&A session, recognizing that we are in the interest of time. Yes, speaking specifically to community investment. Nearly 4 years ago, we launched a product called Internet Essentials. Internet Essentials has connected some 500,000 families across the country, 2 million individuals across the country, 41,000 subsidized computers, and nearly $240 million invested in digital literacy initiatives. That is a program that will be available here in Goshen. It will be available here for $9.95 a month and broadband capability for families that qualify for free and reduced student lunch. And that is families across New England, and I'm sure across your town as well. We've seen particular advantage of it in all across our systems in Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, and across the country. Just a little bit more. Digital literacy, as I spoke of, is really a key piece. It's not only that, but connecting schools and libraries at free cost to our digital product so that they can take advantage of it through an industry promise as well. But we also have national partners that we partner with across the country. Just last week was our National Day of Caring, Comcast Cares Day. Eileen was up in Shelburne at a YMCA camp where we volunteered with nearly 100 employees to refurbish the camp. And we have partnerships across Western Massachusetts that are listed in the product. So economic development, key piece, and we can go to the next slide on that. So one of the things that we do for economic development is really stated in the slides. We think it's impactful in every community that we serve, especially with the amount of folks that work from home and choose to digitally connect to their workplace. So this slide does speak for itself, but does speak to a lot of our investment across the country and how it can be impactful not only in major cities, but in towns like Goshen. So product innovation, a key piece, and I'll go to the next timeline to go through some of this. In 2010, you can see the product innovation where Comcast Business launched its multi-gig Ethernet service. 2011, Xfinity TV and Xfinity Home Security launched to add another product line to our customer choices. In 2012, we kicked off Internet Essentials, which I went through in detail. We also did the launch of X1, which is our cloud-based television platform, an opportunity to really be an intuitive television device for customers to connect with their TVs. 2013, Comcast launched further enhancements to its business networks. Wi-Fi hotspots were particularly important. Wi-Fi hotspots today in the country allow us to pass some 18 million hotspots for Comcast customers across the country, inside and out of your particular community where you live and work. 2014, we launched Xfinity on campus, Western Massachusetts being particularly important to that, and Connecticut due to the high concentration of college campuses. 2015, further enhancements to Xfinity Wi-Fi. Gigabit Pro was launched for the symmetrical 2 gigabit product for business customers, and also further enhancements continue today. I think one of the things that we have in a handout talks about the speeds that are available to customers today in Western Massachusetts and across the country. We have also launched our DOCSIS 3.1 modem capability, which provides and is in testing right now across the country, most common in Atlanta today for our symmetrical gigabit offering to customers. And then we can move on to experience built on what you seek. Make sure that's the one. I think it might be. Yeah, there we go. So high capacity network, business Wi-Fi, individual Wi-Fi, voice for individuals and business. Xfinity TV to go, allowing you over Wi-Fi hotspots to take what is in your home with you. Xfinity Home, which is control of your home or security for your home. Xfinity connections through mobile applications available. Xfinity audio controls and Xfinity on demand. Comcast has made some $300 million investment in its customer service over the last 2 years, since the beginning of 2016, and continues today. We are taking customer service very seriously. We believe we had made great strides in this regard. So I will close with this, that we do have, I think, a common vision for impact. That we have, as I said, world-renowned resources at our hand so that we can continue to enhance our network. As I stated, when I entered the industry, we were the first to launch high-speed internet at the 1.5 and 0.5. We have increased speeds and are entering the gigabit universe for our customers. We do so with investor dollars, and we do so at our risk to make available to our customers. We look forward, if we are the choice here in Goshen, to doing that here in Goshen. I know some of you have specific questions. I'll be happy to address those. Just 2 things I wanted to make a quick point to with regard to what was discussed in the presentation. And I think may make some, there was some issue with regard to net neutrality. I think it has always been Comcast's position that we have always supported a free and open internet. We believe in modern, strong, and legally enforceable net neutrality provisions. This has always been our position, that we do not block, we do not throttle, we do not discriminate against any lawful content delivered on the web. And with regard to customer privacy, I do think I need to state some specifics with regard to that. We do not, let me be clear, sell individual web browsing information to any third parties, and we do not share sensitive information unless our customers affirmatively, and let me be clear about that, affirmatively opted to allow us to do so. So we do not do that. As was stated earlier, just very specifically, if a customer does not want us to do any of sensitive data, we offer, with regard to advertising that is available to them, we specifically offer them the opportunity to opt out of receiving such targeted ads that might become available to them. We take privacy very seriously. We take our individual privacy very seriously, our company's privacy, and the privacy of our customers very seriously. So I just wanted to state that, and we'll be happy to address any particular questions you may have. I thank you very much for welcoming us here this morning.
A couple of housekeeping questions. One, I just wanted to, we normally let people know when content at a meeting is being recorded, and we do have somebody and esteemed select board member from Worthington, Charlie Rose. I'm jealous, Charlie. I don't have a card.
I did it on my dime.
Ah, okay. That explains it. With that said, we'll have Westfield Gas and Electric next. There will be Aaron Bean, who is the operations manager, and John Leary, their IT supervisor.
Well, good morning. I don't have a presentation. You're just going to have to look at me. And by the way, my name is John Leary, not Aaron Bean. I'm the good-looking guy. He's my boss. As I've been thinking about how I'm going to present here today, I guess the first thing I really want to tell everybody here, and please take that for what it's worth. This is not an us versus them. That's not where I'm coming from, and that's not where Aaron's coming from, and I'm sure that's not where Comcast is coming from. They're doing their job. They're doing it well. It's a fine company. I have it. I live in Northfield. I have it at home in Northfield. I pay them every month. Good year. No. And WiredWest is here as well. It's not Westfield Gas and Electric versus WiredWest either. Believe me. All we're doing here, all Westfield Gas and Electric is doing here, is presenting to you an option. And it's an option that you get to choose, not anybody else. Let me tell you a little bit about Westfield Gas and Electric. About 20 or so years ago, we decided to install a fiber ring in Westfield. And we went ahead and installed that ring in downtown Westfield, started servicing some businesses out of that ring, put together a business plan so that we presented to the city council an opportunity to connect up homes to that ring. We thought it was a great idea at the time. We presented to them, and we had third-party people come in, take a look at the business plan. They were all signed off on it very, very highly. They thought it was a great plan. City council voted it down 20 years ago. Imagine where we would be today if they had had the foresight 20 years ago to add fiber to the home. It was a different type of fiber that we're talking about today, but still, it was fiber to the home. So that's 20 years ago. Westfield is a Comcast customer as well. We're competing actively down in Westfield with Comcast, and again, good company and all of that. We're just giving people options. Speed up about 17 or so years, we decided we were given the opportunity to try again in bringing fiber to the home in Westfield. So a pilot program was developed about a year after that, and we were able to bring into that pilot program and show the City Council and our Municipal Light Board, which is the Board of Governors that is responsible for direction of Westfield Gas and Electric, that we were able to pull it off. We successfully brought our pilot program in on time and under budget, and we're able to show, again, the powers that be in Westfield, that we could do it. And we started offering to Westfield a gigabit of speed to all of the homeowners in Westfield. It was a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for them. Why are we doing this? Why is Westfield Gas and Electric in Goshen today? It's simple. We're responsible to the ratepayers of Westfield, period. We're not responsible to the quarterly stock price. We're not responsible to a large CEO board. We're not responsible to a quarterly number from Wall Street. We're responsible to keep the rates as low as possible to the ratepayers of Westfield. Imagine the gas and electric business has kind of reached its top, all right? You're not going to get an awful lot of new business in the city of Westfield. You might have people leave. You might have people come in, you might have a few people build, and we're the utility for them. But our costs keep going up, right? Everybody's costs keep going up, insurance costs, payrolls, things like that. So how do we keep Westfield Gas and Electric solvent, and how do we grow? Oh, wow, this fiber business really looks like an opportunity for us to grow and to keep the rates down for the ratepayers of the city of Westfield. That's the only reason why we're here. We're not here to stuff our pockets, not that Comcast is, not that WiredWest is. I'm just speaking from Westfield Gas and Electric. Please understand that. We are beholden to only the ratepayers of the city of Westfield. We're governed by a municipal light board, and we're given direction from them. So we started that pilot program. We proved we could do it, and in February, the city council approved a $15 million bond for us to cover the rest of the city of Westfield. Well, 75% of the city of Westfield over the next 2 years, and we are aggressively working towards that. We right now have 730, might be 734 as of yesterday, homes connected into our internet program. We charge $69.95 a month for a gigabit of speed. We constantly hear from our ratepayers in Westfield how good we're doing, how service is really what we approach, and that we are a service-oriented company. Somebody has a problem in the city of Westfield, they call my technical support team, and they do not hear, "Are you available next Wednesday between the hours of 2 and 4? They do hear, "I'll be right over." That's service, and that's how we approach fiber, the same way we approach gas and electric. We consider it a utility that is just as important as gas and electric, and we want the city of Westfield to grow. So that's what we're doing here today. We're offering to you, whether it be through a partnership with WiredWest or whether it be on our own, an opportunity to grow the town of Goshen and to offer to you the benefit of having gigabit speed or whatever you decide to be the speed that you want. You see, we believe that it's all about local control. We believe that you should make these decisions. We believe that you should own this. We believe that, and I was reading that tax rate would go up by $144 a year. I get that. I'm a homeowner. I understand what taxes are. I understand how maybe that's a burden on an awful lot of people. But we've been able to save a fair amount of the people in Westfield a lot more than $144 a year. As a matter of fact, it's almost approaching that a month compared to what they're doing now. So we're here as an option just to give you local control of this. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the future holds, quite frankly. We don't know. 20 years ago, it would have been great to take that fiber project on and to move into Westfield, but it didn't happen for us. It's happened now. We happen to be in the right place at the right time. We're offering our services to all these towns throughout Western Massachusetts. We've been meeting, Aaron and I have been doing, we call it the road show, and it's a happy road show, quite frankly. We get to meet wonderful people throughout these towns that have gone through enough, quite frankly. I think the state has treated you entirely improperly, and it borders on sinful, quite frankly, in how you've been treated. Now, again, I'm not here to judge, quite frankly, but I do know that we have an answer. And we have an answer that pretty much fits into the timeline that you are proposing. It's about an 18-month build. But the wonderful thing about this is that you have control with us. You get to choose how you want to do it. You get to choose, you get to rely on our understanding and our technique and what we've learned over the years to bring fiber to Westfield so that we can help you decide how you want to do it, how you want to build it, what you want to charge, how much money you're going to make, how you're going to service the people of Goshen. Now let's just for a second think about if we are chosen to work with you. And believe me, we want to do that. We want to work with all of the towns that are underserved or not served at all. And by the way, before I started doing this, I couldn't believe that there were towns that weren't served. And I live in Northfield, by the way. So to me, it's unbelievable. But anyways, I don't want to get too political here. I really don't. All I want to do is talk about today. I want to talk about how we can help you move forward with local control. You need to rely upon our ability to help you. You need to rely upon what we can do for you. We would love it, both Aaron and I. And by the way, you call us, we pick up the phone. We're local, we're right here in Westfield. Someone has a problem, the technicians work directly for me. And I'm the one that is responsible to the ratepayers of Westfield, and if we're so chosen and lucky enough and gifted enough to move forward, providing internet to these towns in Western Massachusetts, it's me that will be responsible to make sure that the technicians work correctly. It's me that's responsible that will ensure that you get what you pay for. It's me and Aaron and the brain trust at Westfield Gas and Electric that can design this network for you with your input, constant input, by the way. We don't want to do it for you. We want your help. We want your input. We want to work with you as we move down this road. An 18-month or a 24-month project, it's wonderful. You know, we'll work within your timeline. What we've been telling the other towns that we have been working with is we want to do what you want to do. You want to rely on our expertise? Yes, I think you should do that because we've learned a lot. We've made a few mistakes, but we've also made some great relationships in this business with various vendors for build-outs, for designs, for constructions, and for running the actual internet itself. But we want to provide to you the exact same level of service, that we provide to the ratepayers of Westfield. That's what we want to do. Now, how are we going to do that? I mean, you know, I was up in New Ashford yesterday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is just a beautiful little town that I have never been in. And I was meeting with the town selectmen, and they were asking, so John, it's wonderful that you want to do this for us, but you're from Westfield and you live in Northfield. How is New Ashford going to get service if there's a problem? And really what I believe is going to happen is, and believe me, we are a long way away from making this decision. We want to take baby steps with you first, but you know, I actually envision local technicians working out of their home, working for me, by the way, working out of their home and servicing the people of Western Massachusetts, should we be gifted enough to be the internet service provider for you. Working out of their home, receiving help desk tickets from us, from our system, and leaving from their home and servicing the people of Goshen or Cummington or Heath or Rowe or New Ashford or all the other towns that we've been to. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet these people. It's a wonderful opportunity to kind of understand and know what their pain and what their angst is. It's also a great opportunity to solve this. And believe me, I would not be here if I didn't think we could solve it for you, with you. Okay? We're not interested in taking over everything. We want local control. We want you to be in charge of how this thing proceeds. And whatever decision you decide to make, I'm going to honor that. There's no doubt about it. I'll honor it. I do know that we do have a fair amount of towns that have expressed interest, and we're right in the middle of getting the agreements done. Towns right next to you, Ashfield and Plainfield, they're going to be working with us. It'll be a great opportunity for those towns and you to be part of the same network. That'd be great. Talk about diverse paths and things like that. But again, this decision is yours. And as we go through the process of this, please know and understand that you're all invited, every one of you, by the way, to come down to Westfield and see our operations center. That's what we're based out of, right down in Westfield. Come down and take a look at us, check us out, call the people that you know in Westfield, ask them about the G&E, ask them how responsive they are, ask them, you know, what happens when the gas and the electric are out. You know, can we service the town of Goshen? Yes, we can, quite frankly. I mean, we've built, how many fiber hoods are we up to now, Aaron? 14 fiber hoods, and we call neighborhoods fiber hoods, where we've basically lit up these various neighborhoods. You have about 500 houses up here in Goshen, is that what I heard? About 500 or so, 600? That's 2.5 neighborhoods for us, basically. And yeah, it's a little bit further apart, but it's the same as what we're doing today, quite frankly. And it's the same type of service that you will be receiving from us that we give to the ratepayers of Westfield, and would look forward to giving to people in Western Massachusetts. So I would love to talk about, and I'm sure there's going to be a question and answer session, so I'm going to reserve some time for that. But I just need you to, if you take anything from the presentation that I'm giving you right now, we're about local, and we're about you making decisions, not other people making decisions for you. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Bob Labrie, who probably needs no introduction to the people in this room. He's the local town rep for WiredWest, and he'll be able to give his presentation.
For the few of you who don't know who I am, I'm Bob LeBrie. Wayne asked us to each give the folks a brief introduction of who we are. I'll do my best. I've been a volunteer in Goshen's Broadband Committee for 9 or 10 years. It's a broadband committee of one. I have no staff. I'm the website webmaster, chair of the Historical Commission, member of the CPA. Some of you know that I have a relationship with the fire chief, who happens to be my wife. Both of us have been on the fire department since 1990, and our daughter Hannah is also on the fire department as a junior firefighter. I have been Goshen's representative to WiredWest as a delegate since its inception in 2011. I'm also a delegate to the NBI when we were active working with the NBI on the Middle Mile project. All the materials that are presented to you today were printed at no cost to the town at my house last night, because I only have a budget of $300 a year that covers my mileage, and I took care of that budget in 2 months. So I guess what I want to start off by saying is none of us would be here today if it wasn't for WiredWest, and something that we started a long time ago when a group of people, like-minded individuals across Western Mass, decided that we needed to do something to serve the unserved towns. I'm certain that Sue smiled when she heard John say that people were going to be calling him when there were problems with the network, because that sort of made me feel good too, because y'all know where I live, and you know that if you need to get me to your house pretty quick, you just have to dial 911. So with that being said, I have a 20-page presentation here that we've used in several locations. WiredWest representatives travel to all the local towns to give them this same type of information. I'm not going to go over all 20 pages. The material is available to you on our website. I've spoken with many of you about what we do and what we're planning to do. So what I want to try and do, in the interest of time, is try and reset everybody's understanding of what WiredWest's role is. Most of you were with us 2 years ago when we were across the street at the church, and we had that wonderful unanimous vote to go forward with the WiredWest plan. At that time, the concept was that WiredWest would build and own the networks using town funds to do it. And that we would create, with all of our neighboring towns, a regional network that, using the power of numbers, would bring costs down to all of us, all of the subscribers. After the vote, the state changed direction. It changed the policies and said that it wouldn't allow a private organization to use taxpayer funds to build and own a network. So as a result of that, WiredWest went back to the drawing board. There's a lot of more detail I can go into. I'm not going to. But suffice it to say that we came out of that discussion last summer with a new plan where WiredWest would be the provider of the service. The state made it clear that towns had to own the networks at the time. They're not saying that anymore. So even when Wayne was giving his earlier presentation talking about the WiredWest plan, what folks need to understand is the town of Goshen needs to decide if it wants to build its network. WiredWest will help with advice if we want it, if they want it. That's not our role. Goshen has to build the network. That's why Westfield Gas Electric is here. They are a vendor that the town has not chosen yet, but they are an obvious player because they're local. They're a known entity. We've gone down to their shop and looked at the big spools of fiber that they have down there, getting ready to build out in their own neighborhoods. The key here is to understand that if we build it, yep, there's going to be a cost. Somebody's got to pay for it. Right now, the state is offering Goshen $770,000 in a grant that will take care of the design and engineering of that network and some of the make-ready work to build out the network. Tack on to that the $1.4 million that we approved in a debt override vote 2 years ago. Gets you to the rounding $2.2 million cost of our network. Our models, our math, the models that we're using to come up with the costs of the network indicate that at 40% take rate, so if only 40% of the town sign up with WiredWest and take the minimum service that we offer at $59, forget about the gigabit speed, forget about phone. You take $59 a month and 40% of the town does it, we make enough money to survive, to be an ongoing practice. If we change that mix to make it more realistic and say that 70% of the town signs up for service and half of you take the standard plan, which is the 1 gigabit service, and half of you take the economy plan and half of you take the phone service at $19, we generate enough income to pay the debt service. You won't hear that from Comcast proposal because they're a public entity. They're here to build the network, whereas what the WiredWest plan offers is a chance for the town to take those funds and turn it back to the town. The way that would work is on an annual basis, we would be collecting everyone's monthly service charges, accumulating them, and at the end of the year, those funds, the WiredWest Board of Directors, and I am Goshen's representative for that board, would then determine if we use those funds to lower rates so that instead of 59, we make it 49 or whatever, or return those funds back to the town of Goshen. Or maybe a combination of the two. But I just wanted to make sure that that's WiredWest's role. Obviously, I would take direction from the Goshen Select Board because I represent the town as to what their preference would be. But understand that WiredWest is a cooperative of towns, so it behooves cooperative. That's why. When those funds come back to the town, it's up to the town, your elected officials, not me, to decide what to do with those funds. That was one of the things that Wayne was talking about in his on his pitch, where he showed that any funds that come back could be used to offset the debt service, or it could be used to buy any of those items that he had on the capital plan. It's up to the town, and you guys could lobby the select board or make it clear to them what you want. The idea here is that the town has a choice. We're not telling you what to do. This is part of what we're providing that shows you that. The other thing that WiredWest has always supported, that I believe the town of Goshen does as well, is that we would bring and service 100% of the residents who want service. There's a map there that I handed out that shows the utility poles, which are dotted in red, and the households that are dotted in yellow. We have what are referred to as edge issues. Not many, thankfully, but we have some. And the one that I use most frequently is the one on Corner Road. Not many people know where Corner Road is, but lo and behold, it's in the corner of the town. If you go up Hyde Hill Road by Pat's, you get to a sign that says entering Goshen. That's Corner Road. It goes for a couple hundred feet before it gets to Old Chesterfield Road in Chesterfield. There's no way that you can get to Corner Road from Goshen. You have to go through Williamsburg or Chesterfield to get it. We are committed to make sure that that Goshen resident, if they want it, will get service. I'll promise you that. I can promise you that. The way we would do it, because our neighboring towns like Chesterfield and Cummington and Ashfield are also building fiber optic networks because they don't have an option to go with a cable provider. They weren't provided, none of them bid on putting a service in their town. So what we would do in that type of situation to address Corner Road is that we talk to our neighbors in Chesterfield and say, we need you when you're running your fiber up the Old Chesterfield Road to run it 200 more feet so that you can catch that one person. That's how we solve those solutions, or how we resolve those issues. Same type of problem exists on Shaw Road. Shaw Road borders Goshen and Cummington. And if you walk on the left-hand side of the road, you're in Cummington. If you walk on the right-hand side of the road, you're in Goshen. The good news is that the utility poles are on the right-hand side of the road, so they belong to Goshen. The bad news, full disclosure, there are two residents that live on the Cummington side of the road. One is my father-in-law, one is my sister-in-law. I promise them that they will get service. I don't know how, but I will make sure that they do. But in a situation like that, those individuals, Cummington, it would be unlikely that Cummington would run a wire from Route 9 all the way up Shaw Road to get those two people when Goshen's already doing it. Those are the types of things that a local solution will provide, and what I think WiredWest provides. One of the things that I call this the elephant in the room is, and nobody's asked it yet because you haven't had a chance, so I'll cut to the chase. What about TV? Right now, the WiredWest plan is for internet and telephone. The industry is moving towards TV over the internet. As John was mentioning, actually Wayne was mentioning, you can get Netflix, you can get Hulu, Roku. I could go down a list of them, but none of those mention local TV options, and everyone cares about local TV. There are two options, and I know that the question will come up, and I think it's going to be Aaron that's going to talk about it, because in Westfield, their solution, because Westfield is a Comcast town, every Westfield Gas Electric customer is someone that's coming away from Comcast. So they will lose their TV if they go, because all Westfield is offering is internet and telephone. But they also offer, their service technicians will go out and put an antenna on people's houses so that they can get their local TV and hook up their televisions. While that might work in Westfield, depending on whether you're on top of the hill in Goshen or not, will determine whether it works here. However, in talking with Aaron earlier this week, one of the concepts that they have is that before they hook you, yourself, an individual, up for service, they're going to meet with you to say, what do you like? What do you want? And depending on what your answers are, will determine what they do to customize your installation. Monday morning on my day off, I took a day off to do some brush work, but spent most of the time on the telephone doing WiredWest stuff. We had a phone call at 8 o'clock with a company called Skitter TV, Skitter TV, out of Norcross, Georgia. And they are an entity that works with rural communities like ours to provide local television service. My point in bringing it up, I don't have prices for you because we're in the beginning stages of trying to solve that problem. So we understand that local TV is important, as does Westfield. And what I'm presenting to you is that we currently have two options to answer that question. I think I'll stop there. There are several members of the WiredWest Executive Committee and Board of Directors that are here. We are all available to answer. We know a whole host of questions will come up. I'm not going to go into the detailed information that I've provided there for you. That's more for your information. But know that that information, as long as the Select Board allows, will go up on the Goshen website so that people have that information. The other thing that, and that's okay, if you're going to mention this, I'll take the opportunity to do it now. We talked about the cards for folks to ask questions. We're not making a decision today. We're outreaching to folks to let them know what the plans are. But if the Select Board has committed to make a decision in the next 2 months, and over that 2-month period, they're looking for input from residents and taxpayers. The Goshen website will have the information, all they're asking folks to do if they want to, because obviously we don't have 600 residents here listening to us today. So there's a lot of people that aren't availing themselves to this presentation. But the plan will be that you'll be able to send an email to selectboard@goshen-ma.us. That will be on the website so that your friends and neighbors who aren't here, or yourselves, if you don't have a chance to either ask a question or pose a question or share your comments with the Select Board, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So know that that will be made available to you. So with that, I will stop.
Next will be our last presenter, who is Bill Ennen from the state, from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. Did I get that correct? I had to practice that at home last night. I would say that, and just as a comment on one of the other presenters' comments, I would say that probably Bill Ennen has been a driving force in getting this whole situation for the state working. It's been a long time coming. I can remember a town meeting in Worthington, was it in March or February, Charlie? February, where town officials, a lot of town officials from the unserved towns came and made their opinions known about how things were going with the whole process with the state. And I will take the time to tell you that I really believe, in my personal opinion, I don't know what other town officials think, that was a great turning point in this whole process. And I would credit both Bill Ennen for bringing those issues forward. That's the first time they really had a public hearing that I'm aware of to solicit town officials' inputs on how well or how poorly the process was going. And I want to also give Peter Larkin, the chair of MBI, not the director of MBI, the chair of the board of MBI, a lot of credit, because he also listened to those concerns and comments, and they both went back and came up with a lot of creative solutions, which is why, frankly, we are here today, and why there may also be some other options available in the near future to look at. But I stress near future because we're not going to wait till the end of the year if there are other options, and the select board will try to qualify some of those options. In other words, there may be other options that we could care less about, so we're not going to bring them forward. We've done that before this meeting with some other options as well. It didn't make sense. So with that said, Bill Ennen.
Excuse me, allergies just kicked in while I was sitting there, so I've got some Kleenex in my back pocket and do the best I can. First of all, my appreciation to Angela and Diane and Wayne for inviting me here today. We spent a couple hours last week with them in a select board meeting going through a number of issues, and I thought that they were doing a great job of preparing, and that's obvious from what we're seeing here today. To properly introduce myself, my name is Bill Ennen. I live in Hadley, Massachusetts. I work for the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. That office is led by Secretary Jay Ash, who reports to the governor. In May, I started in this assignment, and that particular hat that I started wearing in May is to act as a liaison between the 41 towns, last mile towns, and the state. So what I do constantly is, and I was in Peru on Monday night, and I'll be in Savoy next Monday night, and on and on and on, is I go out and have contact with the towns, either through a delegate from a town, select board, and then I go back to the state and I try to explain what the towns are thinking about, and I've been doing that since May, so 60 or 70 times. The second hat I wear, and this is a new hat as of about April 3rd, I think. Wayne referenced an event in Worthington where a number of towns, 17 towns, told the state that they wanted a path forward to be able to build and own a network, and every one of them named Westfield Gas Electric as their partner to build a network, the network. And they were asking the state to create some sort of pathway for those towns. So in the space of a few weeks, things were set in motion inside of the Secretariat, the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. And so I'm the manager, the grant manager, the program manager for that program, where if a town wants to build and own a network, they come to me for an application, and then I process the application through my bosses, and ultimately the Secretary of Economic Development, Jay Ash, makes the decision and makes a recommendation. The status of that program, there's 41 towns. The status is roughly 25 towns have asked me for the application. Roughly 10 towns have submitted an application. And my responsibility with my bosses is to process those, review those, process those for determination by the Secretary. So that's the two hats I wear. Excuse me. The key thing, and I appreciate that I'm thankful that many of the folks who have spoken have been clear about this morning. The key choice for every town, and I'll be in Savoy on Monday night having this conversation with their select board. The key choice is the town going to end up owning the broadband network, or is a private provider going to end up owning the network? And so one of the things I work on constantly as a liaison and advocate for these 41 towns is, what are the choices in each box? So in the case of a town owning a network, I just described to you a grant program, and that program is really built for those towns who want to build and own a network. And I expect that the vast majority of those towns who apply that program will name Westfield Gas Electric as their owner's project manager to accomplish that. The other approach that we have, it's really driven out of the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, is for private providers to get the state award and build and own the network. So, and that's the presentation that Dan and team are here today providing. I'd like to give examples of each of these just so it's abundantly clear to everybody that there are real life examples happening on the ground, so that if you're curious or if you know somebody in a town where one of these is happening, you can contact them. So let's talk about the examples where there's a municipal ownership, a municipally owned network. The best known one is Leverett, right? They have built, and they do have a network, and they're operating. Another very good example is Mount Washington. The little town of Mount Washington is currently in the process of doing the make-ready work. They hired NextGen, a company called NextGen, for their construction and make ready, and they've hired Crocker Communications to be their network operator. And I have contact with the select board chair there, Brian, and get updates from him. And that will be lit up in 2017. Otis, Massachusetts. Otis is working with Westfield Gas Electric. Last I knew, they were in design or close to end of design on the Otis plan, and that will be owned by the town of Otis. A really different kind of solution is Warwick, Massachusetts, where they're building out, or I should say they're refreshing an existing wireless network which the town owns and the town runs and has run in the black for 6 years. And they're using their state award to improve the technology in that network. So those are some examples of various examples of towns that own a network or are planning to own a network. Let's go to the examples for a private provider owning the network, using the state money and owning the network. We've heard Comcast here today, and that was formalized in a letter from the MBI chairman, Peter Larkin. I think it was in late March the letter came to the select board. Another good example is the town of Princeton has, after a long and complicated process, picked Charter to be their solution. A different kind of example, which some of you may bumped into, is the towns of Sandusfield, Tallinn, and New Marlborough, possibly Monterey, are negotiating with Frontier Communications to come over the border from Connecticut, where Frontier currently is, and build into those towns. So each of those towns is negotiating with Frontier right now on a solution. So I just want to be clear that we have lots of examples out there for folks to go look at, contact. You know, if you know somebody in one of those towns, give them a call, find out what they think about it. Each of these has particular benefits. Each of these approaches, these basic approaches, has particular benefits. From this perspective of the Secretary of Economic Development and from the perspective of the Governor's Office, the question really that I wrestle with is, do the towns have enough information to make the choice? And if they don't have enough information, what can I do? What can I personally do to get them more information? So we sat for a couple hours with the select board last week, and I essentially just tried to answer every question I could. And if I couldn't get the answer, I tried to find the answer. Another good example is at Peru on Monday night. Peru has an offer from Charter Communications. One of the things they wanted to see was the cable franchise agreement, the draft sort of model cable franchise agreement that would be a contract between them and Charter if they pick Charter. So we went to the appropriate regulatory agency and got that draft contract and gave it to Peru. So that's what I'm trying to do on behalf of select boards, is sort of wrestle to the ground the various choices. I think at that point, I think it's a better use of your time if I just pause right there, because the fundamental reason we're here is to get your questions. And I think on behalf of the Secretary, Deputy Secretary Kirk, Peter Larkin, and the Governor's Office, I want to thank you all for your time and your attention coming out, and I'll do my very best to help you and your select board get the information they need. Thanks.
So a couple things before we begin the question and answer period. Housekeeping things. If anybody wants to stand up, stretch, take a minute, limber up, go to the bathroom, now's the time to do it. Okay. I want to thank all the people who came out here to take your questions and give presentations. Sure, you can take 5 minutes. There's a request from the field. Take 5 minutes.